Sena haven't just launched one new smart helmet, they've launched 3. And that matters because this isn't just a new colour, a minor update, or a bit of added Bluetooth. This looks like a proper push from Sena into fully integrated smart helmets with 3 very different models aimed at 3 very different types of rider. You've got the Specter Smart, which is their new premium modular option. You've got the Phantom ANC, which is the full face road helmet with built-in active noise cancellation. And you've got the Outlander Smart, which is their new dual sport helmet aimed at riders who want something more adventure focused. And that's what makes this interesting, because the question here isn't what's got the best spec sheet, it's which one actually makes sense for the way that you ride. I'm Jamie from Moto Central, and in this video we're going to break down all 3 of Sena's brand new smart helmets, look at what each one is trying to do, who they're best suited to, and whether Sena are actually onto something here with this new wave of integrated helmets. Because that's really the bigger story. For years, most riders have been buying a helmet first and then adding comms afterwards. You pick your lid, bolt a unit onto the side, run the speakers inside, and that's been the normal setup for a long time. But Sena clearly want to change that. These helmets are being built from the ground up, around communication and connectivity. Mesh 3.0, Wave Intercom, Harman Kardon audio, AI-based noise cancelling, app control, over-the-air updates. This isn't just about adding an intercom anymore, it's about designing the whole helmet around it. And honestly, that could either be brilliant or it could be a bit gimmicky. So that's what we're going to work out in this video. We'll go through each helmet properly, talk about what stands out, where each one fits in the market, and then at the end we'll answer the big question: which one of these new Sena helmets is actually worth looking at for your kind of riding? And if you're into this kind of gear breakdown, hit subscribe because we've got a lot more coming. Before we dive into the features and specs, the first thing to understand is that these 3 helmets are built for completely different types of riding, because on paper they all share a lot of the same technology: Mesh 3.0, Bluetooth connectivity, Harman Kardon audio, AI-based noise cancellation. But the actual use case for each one is very different. So let's break them down properly. First up, you've got the Sena Specter Smart. This is a modular option, flip front design, dual homologation, and very much aimed at riders who want that everyday usability. Commuting, touring, long rides, stopping at petrol stations, talking to people without taking your helmet off. All the usual advantages you get with a flip front. So straight away, this is going after the same kind of rider that would normally be looking at something like the Shoei Neotech 3 or the Schuber C5, but with everything built in from the start. Then you've got the Sena Phantom ANC. This is the full face road helmet, and it's probably the most interesting one from a technology point of view, because this isn't just a helmet with comms built in, this is a helmet built around active noise cancellation. So instead of relying purely on aerodynamics and padding to reduce noise, it's actually using ANC technology to cut down wind and engine noise while you're riding. And that's a pretty big shift, because if it works well, it changes how we think about helmet noise completely. This one is clearly aimed at road riders, commuters, and anyone doing longer distances where fatigue and noise become a real issue. And then finally, you've got the Sena Outlander Smart. This is the dual sport option. So more geared towards adventure riders, mixed with on-road and off-road use, and people who want something a bit more versatile. You've got the peak, the ability to run goggles, more airflow, and a design that's better suited to this kind of riding. But at the same time, it still keeps all the key tech: Mesh Intercom, Bluetooth, Harman Kardon audio, AI noise cancelling, so you're not losing connectivity just because you're off-road. And that's actually quite a big deal, because traditionally dual sport helmets have always lagged behind a bit when it comes to this side of things. So when you step back and look at all 3, you can see what Sena are trying to do. They're not just releasing one smart helmet, they're building a full range. Modular for everyday riders, full face for road and touring, and dual sport for adventure. All built around the same core idea: fully integrated communication from the ground up. And that's what makes this launch more interesting than it might first look. Because this isn't just about 3 new helmets, It's Sena trying to position themselves as a complete helmet brand, not just a comms brand anymore. And that is a big shift. Now let's get to the part that really separates these helmets from most of the market. It's the technology. Because on paper, a lot of helmets now support comms systems, but these aren't just comms-ready helmets. These are built around the tech from the start, and that's the big difference. The first thing is the Mesh Intercom 3.0. Now, if you've used older Bluetooth systems, you'll know that they can be a bit fiddly. Pairing riders, keeping connections stable, dealing with dropouts, it's not always seamless. Mesh completely changes that. Instead of a fixed chain of riders, you're basically creating a network. So if someone drops out, the rest of the group stays connected. If someone joins, they slot straight in. You've got two main models as well. Open Mesh, which lets you connect to pretty much anyone within range on a shared channel, and Group Mesh, where you can create a private group up to 24 riders and keep it locked in just for your group. So for group riding, especially bigger groups, it's a massive step up in usability. And then you've got Wave Intercom. And this is where things get really interesting, because Wave basically removes the range limitation. Instead of relying on Bluetooth or mesh distance, it uses mobile data. So as long as you've got signal, you can talk to riders anywhere. That could be your mate 5 bikes ahead or someone on the other side of the country. And it's not even limited to Sena users. Anyone with the app and a Bluetooth device can connect. So it's starting to blur the line between traditional intercoms and something more like a full communication platform. Then there's the audio side of things. All three helmets are using Harman Kardon speakers and microphones, which is a big step up from what most people are used to with standard comm systems. Better clarity, more volume, and just a more usable experience when you're actually riding at speed. On top of that, you've got AI-based noise cancellation. Now, this isn't the same as active noise cancellation in your ears. This is focused on your voice. So when you're speaking, it isolates your voice and cuts out the wind noise, engine noise, and background noise to make communication clearer. That alone makes a big difference, especially if you've ever tried talking at motorway speeds. But then, on the Phantom ANC, you can take it one step further, because that helmet has full active noise cancellation built into what you hear as well. So instead of just improving what people hear from you, it actually reduces the noise you hear while riding. Sena are claiming around 20 decibels reduction, which is really significant. To put that into context, riding at motorway speeds can easily expose you to over 90 to 100 decibels of noise. So bringing that down even slightly can make a big difference in terms of fatigue and long-term comfort. If that works as intended, that's not just a comfort feature, that's a genuine shift in how helmets deal with noise. And then you've got all the smaller details that tie it all together. Over-the-air updates through the app, built-in controls designed for gloves, no external units bolted onto the side, everything sitting flush within the shell. And that's really the key takeaway from all of this. It's not just about having more features, it's about how everything works together in a way that's easy to live with day to day. Because for a lot of riders, especially if you ride regularly, convenience matters just as much as performance. Being able to jump on the bike, have everything already set up, and just working, that's where this kind of system starts to make a lot of sense. So all of that tech sounds impressive on paper, but the real question is, what's it actually like to live with? Because this is where integrated smart helmets either make a lot of sense or start to fall apart a bit. The biggest advantage straight away is convenience. Everything is already built in. You're not buying a helmet, then buying a comms unit, then figuring out how to fit it, running wires, sticking speakers in, mount a control unit on the side. All of that is already done for you. You take it out of the box, charge it, pair it to your phone, and you're good to go. And for a lot of riders, especially if you use comms regularly, that is a big win. It's cleaner, it's simpler, and it just feels more like a complete product rather than something you've had to piece together yourself. The second big advantage is how integrated everything feels, because the speakers are designed specifically for that helmet. They tend to sit better around your ears, the microphones are positioned properly, the controls are designed to work with gloves. And you don't get that bulky unit stuck on the side of your helmet, which can sometimes affect aerodynamics or just look a bit bolted on. So from a usability and design point of view, there's a lot to like. But there are trade-offs. And this is the bit that people don't always think about. So the first one is flexibility. With a traditional setup, you can choose any helmet you want and add whatever comm system you prefer. If you upgrade your comms, you just swap the unit over. But with something like this, everything is built in, so you're committing to that system from the start. If you prefer a different brand, or you want to upgrade in a couple of years, you don't have the same flexibility. The second thing is longevity. Helmets and electronics don't always work on the same life cycle. A good helmet can last years, but technology moves much faster. So while over-the-air updates help, there's still the question of how future-proof something like this is compared to a separate system you can upgrade independently. And then there's the riding experience itself. Things like the ANC sound great, but how well they work in real-world riding conditions is going to be the key. Wind noise on the bike isn't the same as noise on a plane or in an office. It's more chaotic, more variable, and harder to control. So it'll be really interesting to see how effective that is once people start using these helmets properly on the road. Same with things like the lights, the controls, the app integration. All of it sounds good, but the real test is how intuitive it feels when you're actually riding with gloves on at speed. And that's something you only really get a feel for over time. So when you step back and look at it as a whole, these helmets make a lot of sense for a certain type of rider. If you like everything being integrated, you use comms regularly, and you want something that just works straight out of the box, this approach is really appealing. But if you're someone who likes to mix and match your setup, upgrade bits over time, or you've already got a system you really like, then it might not be as straightforward. And that's really the key takeaway here. This isn't automatically better or worse than those traditional setups, it's just a different way of doing things. And whether it works for you depends entirely on how you ride and what you actually want from your helmet. So now we've gone through the tech and what these helmets are trying to do, the big question is pretty simple. Which one should you actually go for? And the answer really comes down to how you ride, starting with the Sena Specter Smart. If you're a commuter, a tourer, or someone who really wants one helmet that can do a bit of everything, this is probably the one that's going to make the most sense. The flip front design gives you that everyday usability, easy on and off, talking at petrol stations, quick stops, all the stuff that makes a difference day to day. And then you've got all the tech built in on top of that. So if you like the idea of a premium modular helmet but want everything there from the start rather than adding it in later, this is the one that fits that role. Then you've got the Sena Phantom ANC. This is the one that stands out the most. If noise is a big issue for you, whether that's long motorway rides, commuting every day, or just wanting a more comfortable experience over time, this is probably the most interesting option of the three, because the active noise cancellation changes the conversation. If it works as well as it's supposed to, it's not just about comfort, it's about reducing fatigue and potentially protecting your hearing over longer rides. So this is aimed much more at road riders, higher speeds, long distances, and anyone who prioritises that quieter, more controlled riding experience. And then finally, the Sena Outlander Smart. If you're riding adventure bikes, doing a mix of road and off-road, or you just want something a bit more versatile, this is where the Outlander makes sense. You've got the peak, the ability to run goggles, better airflow for slower off-road riding, and a design that suits that kind of environment. But at the same time, you're not giving up on the tech. You're still getting mesh, Bluetooth, Harman Kardon audio, and all the connectivity features built in. So it fills the gap where dual sport helmets usually fall behind when it comes to this side of things. And that's really the key difference between the three. They're not competing with each other, they're designed for different riders. If you want convenience and all-round usability, Spectre. If you want the most tech-focused option, especially around noise, Phantom ANC. If you want versatility for mixed riding, Outlander. And that's what makes this lineup quite strong, because instead of trying to force one helmet to do everything, Sena have built three options that each make sense for specific types of riding. So after looking at all three of these helmets, the big question is, are they actually worth it? And honestly, it depends on how you look at them. If you compare them directly to traditional helmets, where you buy the helmet and then add the comm systems afterwards, these aren't necessarily cheaper or more flexible. You're committing to a full package, but that's also kind of the point. What Sena are doing here isn't trying to replace every helmet on the market, they're offering a different way of doing things. A helmet where everything is already built in, designed to work together, and set up to give that connected riding experience straight out of the box. And for the right rider, that makes a lot of sense. If you use the comms regularly, listen to music, taking calls, riding in groups, or following navigation, then having everything integrated like this is genuinely convenient. No setup headaches, no compatibility issues, no bulky units stuck on the side. It just works. And that's where these helmets stand out. The Phantom ANC in particular is the one that could really change things, because if that active noise cancellation performs well in real world riding, that's not just another feature. That's something that could genuinely improve comfort, reduce fatigue, and potentially even help with long-term hearing. But at the same time, these aren't going to be for everyone. If you already have a helmet that you love and a comm system that you're happy with, there's not a huge reason to switch everything over. If you like that flexibility of being able to upgrade your setup over time, a traditional approach still makes a lot of sense. And there's also the question of how these will perform long term, because this is still a relatively new direction for helmets. It's one thing having all this tech built in, it's another thing seeing how it holds up over time, how reliable it is, and how it actually feels after months or years of use. But as a direction for the industry, this is really interesting, because it feels like we've started to move away from helmets as just protective gear and more towards helmets as a connected system. And Sena are clearly pushing that forward in a big way with these three models. So are they worth it? For the right rider, yes. If you want something fully integrated and easy to live with day to day, these are definitely worth considering. But like any helmet, it still comes back to that same thing: fit, comfort, and how you actually ride. That's something that should always come first. Now, all three of these are available for pre-order on our website. So if you want to take a closer look or check availability, you can head over there. I'll put the links in the description. And if you've got any questions or you're trying to decide which one makes the most sense for you, drop them in the comments. We're always happy to help. If you enjoyed the video and found it useful, give it a like and subscribe. It really helps our channel grow and lets us keep making this kind of content. Thanks for watching, ride safe, and we'll see you in the next one.